everyone. Welcome to our latest Head in the Clouds video series hosted by Citrus Global. Today I'm here with Mike Gerasymenko, who is the CTO at Field. And Field are a dating app company for everybody. So welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining me here today.
Thank you, Michael. Really happy to be here.
Great stuff. Well, look, Mike, for those of you that don't know you, do you want to give a quick introduction as to yourself and your background?
Yeah, of course. So I'm originally from Ukraine. Have a degree of Master of Applied Mathematics. I've been interested in the engineering since a very young age. Was experimenting with the early age, the Sinclair computers. Since then, worked around 12-13 years in engineering all in all. And yeah, I've been mostly working on the native platform engineering side for iOS, so iPhone and iPad.
Okay.
Then leading the team for around 4 years, and I've been a CTO for around 1 year now. I've worked before in other startup here in Germany. And now I'm with Field. I can give a short introduction about Field if you wish.
Yeah, please do.
So Field is a dating app for everyone, for all genders and all people, and also for couples. Field is also a very interesting company because it's a completely remote company from the day one. And mostly I joined it because of this this experience that is super valuable in the Corona times. I can learn so much here, how people work together from all parts of England, from Spain, from Portugal, and me from Germany together.
Okay. And
Field is also a self-sustaining company. This means that we are earning as much as we spend based on the in-app purchases of our users.
Right.
So our users directly supporting us without the need of any venture capital or whatnot.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Well, I mean, certainly. Yeah, it sounds like a very interesting company to work for. We, I think we originally started talking when you CTO at Gerasymenko, and again another, application-based business as well. So it's, I know this is an area that is close to your heart, and it is, it is something you've got a wealth of experience in as well. And interestingly, you've recently moved to Field, but I suppose the biggest part of a lot of people's lives recently, this kind of COVID crisis, for a lot of that you were working for Gerasymenko until you moved to Field. I mean, I suppose if you cast your memory back to the early days of March, April kind of time, and then moving through this period, have there been sort of many frustrations you've had, or any sort of periods that of things that you found difficult and challenging through the period?
Yeah, I think myself, I have 2 kids, and of course the initial frustration was connected to taking care of them during the work time. Yeah. Because in Germany we had the kindergartens and schools shut down for quite some time, actually, for around 4 months. And I think in the company where I worked, everybody who I worked with had no kids, so they were like, yeah, there is no problem, we continue working. Right. And I had just I explained to one of the colleagues, and he was like, yeah, but it's just like the same way as it was before, like just taking care of your kids and work at the same time. So what's the problem? So there was this, I think I had a lot of frustration by trying, to explain to people the struggle that I have to continue being productive, and at the same time taking care of the kids and entertaining them and doing the homeschooling. Yeah. So this was, I think, one of the biggest frustrations so far. But lucky enough, now the school system and kindergartens are back on track and recovered. So just hoping and crossing fingers that it will stay this way.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% understand you on that one. I mean, likewise in exactly the same position, and you're not the first. You're the first person to say that kind of balance between looking after your kids and working was, has certainly been a difficult thing for a lot of people to get on top of, but hopefully now, like you say, with children going back to school and them being out of the house, it makes that moving forward a lot easier. So that's fingers crossed that the children can remain. They're going to be able to remain in school. Okay. Well, look, I mean, I mean, moving on from the kind of frustrations part of this, I know that there's, I mean, everybody I've spoken to, they've learned a lot during this period. I mean, it's been a whirlwind for everybody. I mean, are there any specific lessons or specific things that you say that you have learned during this period?
I think a lot of people learn that they can work from home productively. And this is also learning for myself. I worked maybe 5-6 years ago more on the freelance roles and therefore work from home. And back then it was not a success for myself. Therefore, okay. I said I wouldn't work remotely, and I was pushed to this because of the COVID crisis.
Sure.
And actually, it is productive, and it is good for engineers. Obviously, at work, I work mostly with engineers, and in our company where I worked at the point at Caracare, there was no working from home policy before COVID. So everybody was required to go into the office, and the engineers were not happy about it, since they knew that in other companies they have the option, for example, to work 1 day a week from home. And I was trying to change this. So obviously, when the crisis happened, we all started to work from home, and I think our the people who work with me in management, they understood and they learned that the people can be productive at home, and the business can continue running when everybody's just working from home, and this is just a big benefit for everyone. I'm sure that it's not ideal for everyone, because there are a lot of people who still prefer to go to the office because they feel the need of it. They have their own reasons.
Yeah.
But in the nutshell, I think from what I saw from my experience is that the working from home is as effective as working from the office, at least for engineers.
Sure. Okay. That's interesting. So you, from you said a management perspective, that they realize that people could be effective working from home, but it sounds like you as well personally have realize that you can be effective working from home as well, which is interesting, because as you said 5 or 6 years ago, that wasn't something that you felt you could be. Did you therefore, I'm assuming you did make changes to the way that you kind of set your day up, or that the way you organize yourself to make sure that you were being more effective from home?
Yeah, I think it's important to keep the working hours and have a routine that you're switching from being at home to being at work. So for me, I have a dedicated room for this. Lucky enough, I can have a nice setup at home with monitors, cameras, and
sure.
Whatnot. And basically, it boils down to the habits. So initially, I think it was not that effective, but then over time, the habit is built. And the other powerful tool, I think, is to have the focus time, because at least in the management position, you tend to have a lot of meetings planned, booked throughout the week. And I personally, I book the time at least on Wednesday, Thursday, when almost the whole day I have no time for meetings, because I'm having a focused work. It's required, for example, for planning, for thinking about the issues that we potentially have, for all other strategic activity that I have at work. And basically, the other important part is having transparency when you're available for calls, for answering in the chats, and building up the habit for other employees, because if you're managing the team, or if you're a CTO, then other people are looking on how you work. And if you, for example, frequently working overtime, then they see that it's maybe something that is potentially expected from them, which is absolutely not something that I want to have in my organization, because especially with the working remotely, people tend to take less vacations. And I think this is a problem, and there's a risk for burnout for some of the employees, especially the ones who are easily engaged with the work and can continue working maybe to even throughout the night or whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep the perception of my working hours as your normal 9 to 5 work, even if I have maybe free time where I actually work overtime.
That's really, yeah, I think they're a really interesting point. I mean, I like, you're not the first person to having it, if possible, not everybody is able to do it, but to have a dedicated working area, working space where you can shut that door and then it becomes personal time, or and then workspace, I think is really useful. And I liked what you said there about having some dedicated time for you to either focus on your work, like that you need to get done, or think about what, some strategic stuff where you haven't got meetings that you're going into every sort of 15, 20, 30 minutes. I think that pays dividends as well. So, okay. I think I couldn't agree more really with Mike with what you said there. So moving forwards, obviously it's we were discussing this before we started filming, but it's still, with the way that the world is at the moment, and COVID, it's re-emerging. It seems to be coming back more than certainly that we would like to see it. But there is, I think there's two schools of thought. There are people that are talking about, on one hand, people are talking about a recession, and people are talking about the economy shrinking, and on the other hand, there's a lot of people talking about a real positive bounce back and a spike in business activity. So I mean, from your perspective, do you think that your sector, do you think the field, will see a meaningful bounce back in the coming months? And
I would say so, or at least we believe so. The numbers look promising so far, and our business is also built, as I said, on the App Store revenue, where we have mostly subscription-based revenue. And though like this type of income or revenue channels are normally more stable, even if the people spend generally less on the apps and on digital goods. For me, as I would perceive the subscriptions that I'm used, if I'm dating with people on the app, if I'm chatting with them, those type of users are likely to retain even if they have potentially financial difficulties.
Okay.
I would say, of course, I'm not the economical expert, but it's just the overlook that I have from the hill where I sit on. Of course, there are very high mountains where maybe the people see very different picture. But I think for a dating business, at least from what I could see, the things are looking promising.
Good. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I think because especially for, I suppose, COVID must have been from a dating app perspective, when we were in full lockdown and quarantine, that must have been a really, really difficult period for, especially for a dating app where people just can't leave their house. So that must have been, really challenging. But that's, again, fingers crossed that we can avoid these total lockdowns. I think that the fact that the numbers are positive and where they are sounds like that there should really be a bounce back, and there should be a meaningful increase in as well, which is great. And is there anything you're doing specifically then to perhaps to prepare for that bounce? So is there anything that you're doing with Field to try and to kind of be prepared to see a see a boost in numbers or see a spike in activity?
Of course, we do our marketing activities, marketing research, and trying to understand how we can win users for a longer period. We're looking, for example, for longer period subscriptions, so
Okay.
that people can potentially pay upfront for a year and then they get the rebate on the subscription price.
Right.
The other way of potentially dealing with COVID crisis is we normally, when you look for a date in our app, it shows you the people who are physically around you based on geographical location, and we added the option to look into other locations, and also to have a virtual location where the people can sort of virtually be in.
Yeah.
And you can set your profile to be in this type of location, and you can look for other people in this location, so you can chat with people around the globe. And it's also one of the ways for us to allow for people to be more productive, like more chatty at home without actually meeting anyone.
Well, that's a great innovation, isn't it? Because that where we are now with this new normal, that could be something that is really appeals for a lot of people. Actually, be able to still be active and meet new people in a virtual environment. I think that's like even with our jobs and things like that. You've mentioned that your field is set up as a remote-based business. Video virtual is becoming more and more prevalent in everyday life. So I think that sounds like a really interesting innovation. Before we started recording, you said that you're working on a new initiative, which again sound like a really interesting project, and it was to try and combat, I suppose, fraudulent users and I suppose fake users that are on the platform that are doing things they shouldn't be doing. And sort of on that project, you mentioned that you're looking at new algorithm and machine learning. Can you tell us a bit more about that, Mike? A bit more about that initiative, that project you're working on?
Yes, of course. So as any dieting problem, I think has this platform has this problem where there are users who register with their fake names, fake pictures, and they're trying to connect with as many users as possible. And they're maybe asking those users for a favor or doing some favor for them that is obviously fake, and they ask the users to send them money and do other types of fraudulent activities. So to fight those, we developed like a machine learning algorithm that is trained based on the data that we have based on the user reports. So of course the users are able to report potentially fraudulent accounts, and also the accounts who execute the behavior of being like, I would say it, the users who want to abuse others, for example.
Right.
And we developed this algorithm, the machine learning algorithm, based on the data. But the problem is the people who do this fraudulent activity on our app, they're earning money from this, obviously. So they're motivated with this to continue going and to continue finding the ways to still be active on the platform. So for us, it's a never-ending fight, but we want to excel in this. We want to push it to the minimum as much as we can to make our platform safe and secure for the users. The initiative is to find the most feasible way to facilitate it from engineering perspective, from the team perspective. So there are three ways how I can see we can do this. One is to buy a service from a third-party company that has experience in this. There are pre-built services. As you can imagine, this is not the problem that appeared overnight. This is the problem that is multiple companies are facing. But those solutions are usually quite expensive. So the price for the solution is comparable to the like 1 year price is comparable to 1 year compensation of the engineer on our team. And there are like, the other option is to pay the consulting company to build the customized solution for us based on their experience. And there again, it's quite expensive. And as I mentioned, as the fraudulent users are motivated to still find the way on the platform, and they can see that they, for example, cannot register their accounts, they're getting blocked, they just continue going.
Trying different ways.
And exactly, they're trying different ways. And for us to just have the solution built once is not enough, obviously, because we would be most likely facing the necessity to enhance it going forward. And the third option is to build up the competence in the team. So hire the data scientist, data engineer on board to continue developing and improving the algorithm that we have. This is, I think, to date is the most feasible way. For us, it's tricky to find the right candidates at once. Like at one point before COVID, it was way harder, I think, for the company to find the right candidates. But right now, as more and more people are getting familiar with working remotely, we have more and more candidates, and especially because we can work with candidates from different countries in the same time zone. Quite literally starting from India all the way to New York. So on one side, we have this big variety of places where the people can work from. And I think this should be a way to go for this problem.
I think it's really, again, a really interesting point, because that the way that the world is now, and now people they've kind of all forced into this working from home. A lot of people have realized, I really like this. A lot of, like you said before, some people have realized actually they don't like it. They want to work remotely, but it's given a lot of people exposure that otherwise wouldn't have had that exposure. Actually, they could fancy a remote-based opportunity. Not only that, but of course, look, it opens up the talent pool. So you're not, while you're personally, I know you're based in Berlin, you don't need to necessarily be looking in Berlin. You could be looking for talent, as you said, that is based anywhere in the world. I suppose my last question to you, Mike, is along those kind of lines, actually. So look, one of the trends that we're seeing a lot from a recruitment perspective is that clients are perhaps moving away from hiring and pivoting from having like just a dedicated permanent workforce, and are actually opting for more of an agile freelance workforce that could be based in sort of a variety of different locations. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about that?
I feel that the future is in the remote permanent workforce, where you have a lot of opportunities to interview people. You can hire people, but normally in the first 2 weeks to 4 weeks of work engagement, it's clear if the candidate is someone who you would like to continue working on the team or not. And I think it's ideal to accumulate this remote team that you are very confident with, like the 5x engineers or 10x engineers if you want, and make them recognize, like make them see that you recognize them, and that you value them and respect them, by keeping them for a longer time, and also in this way having them always in the loop, and allowing them to see them as the part of the bigger picture of the members of the organization, and to show them what are the goals they're working towards. So they're not only working on the tasks, but they're working on something bigger, something more general. So this is my idea, my understanding for the moment.
So you see it more as a remote-based permanent workforce as opposed to like an agile freelance work. I think the debate is gonna rage on that one. I think I certainly see there's benefits to both, and if you can, because the remote-based element of it, if you can bring someone into the organization, if you can onboard them and embed them into the culture as well, then you're gonna, they've got a good mix of work-life balance. Like you say, they're not expecting to be logged on till 12 o'clock at night, and they're, because there is that danger that people could, like you said earlier, burn themselves out. I think there's a real opportunities for lots of companies out there to get some great talent, and that talent could be from potentially anywhere in the world as well, which I think is really exciting. So look, Mike, that wraps this up. That's everything I wanted to cover with you. I've really enjoyed it. I've really appreciate your time on this one, and I think you've had some great insights, which I'm sure everybody will agree have been valuable, and they can perhaps take forward and incorporate into their businesses as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, Michael. That was also very insightful for myself. I was glad to have this call with you. And yeah, have a great productive week.
You too. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.